The Book of Sins by Judd Richardson.
The text cursor blinked on the computer screen as an inadequate beat to the pulsing music in Tyler's ear. Eyes bloodshot and ears worn from the sharp lyrics of Linkin Park and System of a Down, the pale-faced author sipped his midnight energy drink. Like the steady IV drip to a comatose patient, the ginseng and caffeine did little to feed Tyler's fading imagination. A fact that frankly scared Tyler, seeing as how in the course of a week little progress had happened to his second book inside of his little pathetic haven of writing. Truth was, Tyler hadn't always been a miserable wretch when it came to writing. In a time that seemed so long ago, he'd been happy to sit for hours on end, building worlds with unimaginable physics and unique characters, and then to manipulate that world to his liking. What made all that work sweeter was that he got to play God to these mindless creatures of his making. The love that he felt was so strong that he had written his first book in only a few months, and then poured half a dozen edits to make it perfect. But in the end, Tyler had tried everything he could to publish that book. He had written a magnificent novel, sent hundreds of letters to agents, and had received hundreds of rejections. He had certainly tried, and just as all talented authors experience sooner or later, he was beginning to doubt his calling in life. That is, until an email changed everything. "Dear Mr. Onsen," the email began, "upon reading your query letter in regards to your book, Devil's Pact, I have to say that your unusual style of literature has intrigued me. Please, send me a 100-page sample of your project, and I will contact you for more. Sincerely, Tabitha Blake." Tyler reread the email again and again, each time his tired heart warming to the news. The email was so simple, but, in a way, beautiful. Tabitha knew what she wanted, and wasted little time to get what he was offering. By being so short in reply, she had practically flagged the message that he need Russia to reply, so that she could get her fix. She had sampled the genius, and now was trembling for more. Bubbling with an uncontrollable excitement, the email was quickly printed out into as many pages as the ancient inkjet printer could hold and tacked all over the house. A celebration pizza was sent for, and another root beer was cracked open. He had done it. Someone was interested in his work and was asking for more. Now, Tyler wasn't a blithering idiot. He knew this didn't mean that he had an agent or even a publisher. But it did show that he was moving up in one of the most unbalanced cutthroat businesses of all time. His struggle with being noticed wasn't because of his lack of ability. No. While walking the aisles of his favorite bookstore, perusing the retailer's wares, it was clear that ability was not a requirement. If anything, he had learned writing wasn't a career choice that required talent or even skill. While turning the pages, he would openly laugh at the overly rosy prose and pages atrociously jam-packed with adverbs. It was clear. These pitiful writers obviously had family in the publishing arena, or had money enough for a half-decent ghostwriter. Either way, though, Tyler knew that his book was better than most of the joke books misplaced on the fiction shelves. But none of that mattered, because to many publishers, gender and race were all editors and typesetters wanted. While waiting for the pizza, Tyler returned to his desk to spend one last moment with his dear story, like two loved ones bidding farewell as a train is about to depart. Through the months of writing and editing, every page was a memory. Every character had been gifted a small part of himself. Then with one last motion he attached the document to a reply and sent the request to Tabitha, wrapped in his fragile hopes and dreams. Knowing that he would never be able to survive the wait, Tyler packed a bag and drove 2 hours to his sister's house, giving her a great surprise. In a way, being with his only family made the coming acceptance letter from his new agent even more exciting. Out of anyone in the world, Bonnie was the only one to understand her brother. Being unwanted children of an abusive drug addict mother, Tyler and Bonnie were as close as siblings could be. Celebrating their reunion, brother and sister sat on the porch, escaping the summer warmth while sipping iced tea. All the while, Bonnie's 2 daughters played in the shallow kiddie pool. "How's the writing, Ty?" With a single twitch of his eyebrow, Tyler's face remained cold as stone. Swirling the golden drink to hear the swimming ice cubes clink against the glass, Tyler shrugged. Oh, pretty good. Bonnie blinked, waiting like a fool for him to elaborate. Come on, Ty, she said, poking him. You're never that reserved when it comes to writing. You think you're God's greatest gift since Shakespeare. Nuh-uh. As your older sister, I sense more. Slapping his knee, she egged him on. Not much has really happened. Just heard back from an agent that she asked for the first 100 pages of my book. It's not that big of a deal. Without looking at his sister, Tyler sipped his drink, but kept her face framed in his periphery, drinking in her joy. That's incredible! I knew you were joshing me. Crossing his leg and scratching his chin, Tyler watched his nieces for a moment, not really caring what they were doing. At the moment, he was immersed in the play that was taking place on the stage that was Bonnie's porch. Well, I have a long way to go from here. She asked for my first 100 pages, so it's progress, but definitely not the end. Feeling excited for her brother, Bonnie tapped her feet and thought, wait until Manny hears about this. He'll be so happy for you. Still drinking in the scene, Tyler spoke with the formality of an English emissary. I'd rather you don't. Bonnie frowned. Faking a smile, Tyler shrugged. I guess I'm just nervous, that's all. I could just as easily hear back from the agent and be rejected. It's just a little awkward, you know what I mean? Looking into Tyler's eyes for a moment, Bonnie finally nodded. Okay. I just thought that he would want to hear it, that's all. You know he feels like you don't like him. Winking, Tyler sat back in his chair. Well, then I'll tell him myself when the agent takes me on as a client. Okay? Bonnie beamed. So, do I finally get to hear what your book is about? I mean, it's sort of weird that you don't share what your story's about with your own sister. For the first time since receiving the glorious email, Tyler's demeanor fell. What had been happening on the stage of Bonnie's porch was no longer fun. In the past year of writing and countless edits, Tyler knew Bonnie would eventually read the story. She was that kind of sister. Standing to pour a fresh glass, Tyler turned his back. Let's talk about something else. Laughing, Bonnie rocked in her chair. Ty, don't do this to me. You quit your job so you could fulfill your dream, and you're so close now. Besides, don't you think I'll read your book? You may as well at least tell me. Cornered by his sister, Tyler sat on the porch rail with the laughing children forgotten behind him. Bon, I don't want you to know. Matter of fact, I don't even want you to read the book. Bonnie looked unsure whether she should be worried or laugh at the joke she didn't get. I'm your only family. Why? Trust me. No, Bonnie said as all the world grew silent. I have been with you through so much. Are you embarrassed? Is the book not good? Is it a nasty romance novel? Growling, Tyler squeezed the rail. No, just trust me. Tyler, Bonnie said slow and clear. I don't care what the book is about. Us. Tyler's word slit the air like a carbon hunting knife. Blinking several times, Bonnie thought through that single word. Finally she spoke. This time, all the sounds of the world rushed in like a wave and drowned out her silently spoken word. Mom? Afraid of the word, Bonnie looked at the innocent children in the yard as if the word may harm them. I just remembered, Tyler. Manny's parents are expecting us to visit them in Florence. Running her fingers through her curly hair, Bonnie fixed her shirt and pants. I wish you had called, but I really need to get things together. Sinking through the floor and finally falling into the eternal abyss of the earth, Tyler nodded. Sure, no problem, sis. I'm sorry I didn't call, but thanks for the iced tea. The drive home was a mess for Tyler. Almost a year's work stacked into an impossible dream like a tower of cards. For the 100th time, he asked himself why in the world had he even written about Mom. Bonnie was the only person in the world that he loved, and seeing how even mentioning the past was almost too much for her to bear. Driving in silence through the winding curves of the Arizona mountains, Tyler grit his teeth. Frustrated at his stupidity, he began to plan nothing less than murder. Just as a cold-blooded killer would, he calculated the consequences of his actions. After countless curves and hills, He decided he would end the lives of all the characters that he had fashioned after his own life and delete the book. Blowing out an exasperated breath, he decided he needed a vacation. Perhaps after the genocide, a trip to another state would help spawn a new, much-needed story to help launch him into fame. And this time, he wouldn't use his life to create these stories. The iPhone riding shotgun dinged. Reaching into the passenger seat where it had been tossed, Tyler checked the screen and almost lost control of the car. A single notification showed an email from Tabitha Blake. Wanting nothing more than to read the email, Tyler bit his nails as he watched for a place to pull over. He had figured Tabitha would take a week, but with a reply of less than 24 hours, all attention was needed for this pivotal moment. Mr. Onson, I apologize for the late reply. I've been very busy with your 100 pages and other business that has called my attention. The reason for my reply is that I am very interested in representing you in your pursuit of being published. I would ask that you send me the rest of your book, and that I have time to go over it more fully. The only request that I make is that you stay at home for the foreseeable future. My decision to represent you hasn't come lightly, and I want your best work to get out as soon as possible. Please, be ready to make changes as I send them to you. Sincerely, Tabitha Blake. Tyler wiped his face and reread the most sought-after letter any aspiring author could want. He had been more than right. She had consumed his 100 pages in record time and accepted him. Reading the email for a third time, Tyler tried to understand why she had thought it had taken long enough to apologize for a late reply. Most agents took 8 weeks and some half-year to make a decision. It was clear that Tabitha was something else. Leaning on the car, Tyler frowned as he remembered the decision to kill his book. Closing the email, Tyler felt his heart throb. This was it. He finally had his chance to get what he deserved, and he was going to take it even at the cost of Bonnie's disappointment. He'd worked too hard to lose this opportunity. She'd forgive him. He had done worse. Pulling back onto the road, Tyler flew home. Being so consumed in excitement, he was oblivious to the transition from wildlife to city. Nearing his apartment complex, his brow furrowed as smoke began to darken the sky. Always a bad sign in a city, Tyler felt bad for the poor schmuck that had just lost his home. But as Tyler drew close, his pity turned to dread. Pulling into his apartment complex, Tyler almost screamed. The scene was one from Dante's Inferno. 5 stories of apartment wore orange and red robes as they burned. All around the scene, tenants cried and watched as their lives turned to ash. Bolting from his car, Tyler ran to ask what had happened. Looking above the crowd, Tyler watched as the firefighters recognized the futility of their fight as they turned their hoses on the unburned buildings, trying to lower the risk of the fire spreading further. Out on that curb, the heat of the blaze caressed Tyler's cheek, and he stepped back. Like the touch of an abusive lover, he almost recoiled as memories stirred in his mind. Haunting memories of him and Bonnie, as children watching as their home and the projects burn. In a way, he could hear his mother rambling on with the other ladies about the devastation. Tyler's throat went dry. Just then, the thought of his computer hit him like a hammer. His story! He had written and edited it time and time again, but like a fool, he had never backed it up to the cloud. The excitement of finding an agent had taken over his mind to the extent that the simple save had been neglected. Clenching his jaw and struggling to breathe, Tyler now had a reason to mourn with the saddest around him. Standing there in the crowd of smoky, tear-streaked faces, Tyler's face grew pale. The amount of work it would take to bring his document back to its glorified state would be months. Tabitha may have moved on in that amount of time. Turning his back on the fire, Tyler returned to his car with his head held high. He wasn't going to give up so easily. To his shock, the next 2 days were a nightmare far worse than the fire. He hardly had time to even edit. In between finding a furnished studio apartment and shuffling through insurance paperwork, he sent Tabitha an email. In the short email, he quickly mentioned a small fire and said that he would get the book to her as soon as possible. True to form, Tabitha replied within an hour. Dear Tyler, I am sorry to hear about your hardship, but the publisher that I think is perfect for your book is not going to wait forever. Please, when you get a moment, send your book to me, and I will work while you take care of the fire business. Time is running out. Tabitha Blake. Finally, when the time came, Tyler sat down to edit his book. After downloading the 100 pages he had sent to Tabitha, he started a new draft. Swearing aloud, he realized how immense his task really was. He had 237 pages left that needed his attention. Looking to see where he had left off, Tyler felt a lump in his throat. Could it be coincidence that the last part of his 100 pages ended with the main character's home burning down? Swallowing his alarm, Tyler laughed at how life mimicked art and turned his thoughts to the task at hand. With a deep breath, he dove into his work, not noticing day melt to darkness. With graceful fingers dancing across his keyboard to the depressed metal tunes of My Chemical Romance, or the synthetic sound of Gunship, Tyler was in his element. From time to time he would wipe his eyes or jump up to pee with a full bladder, but little else happened other than editing. But at last, as mortality reminds all artists of their flawed forms, he looked up feeling woozy from the lack of food and too much caffeine. Closing the screen for a time, Tyler ordered Chinese, the only food that seemed to be open at all times of day. Calling the restaurant, he cut through thick accents trying to order, but in the end he cared little whether or not it was correct. If the driver brought him raw squid, he probably would have eaten it with a stupid smile. There wasn't any food in his place, and he had to eat in order to continue his work. As promised over the phone, a knock sounded in less than 30 minutes. Excited, Tyler opened his door and took the food with little more than a thank you. With the encouraging progress of the day's work, and the chance of having a good agent, Tyler felt like dancing. Spinning with his plastic bag in hand and setting it on the counter, he gave in and did his best moonwalk. Grabbing his backpack, he propped his phone up as a makeshift TV and opened YouTube, ignoring the 8 missed calls from Bonnie. Tonight, he was celebrating. Tonight, he was on his way to fame and fortune. Distracted by his video, Tyler opened up his food and plunged the fork deep into the glazed chicken. Still dancing and eyes glued to the try not to laugh video, Tyler put the orange chicken into his mouth and chewed. A moment later, he froze. Alarms blared in his mind and gut. With a full mouth, he spewed the food across the counter on his phone. Unable to control himself, he gagged and ran to the sink. Eyes bulging, he heaved and threw up. To his disbelief, he felt as though he had licked the bottom of the janitor's closet, as the taste of pine and bleach spilled from his ears. Anger boiled in his soured stomach at someone's thought of a sick joke. Picking up his phone, he called the restaurant, ready to toss out all cultured phrases for more primitive insults. After yelling at the manager and threatening to call the police, the man finally got through to him. "No, sir," the Asian man said. "My driver, he here now. He says your wife take the food. All food is fine." Tyler froze with his ear glued to his phone and the taste of bleach burning his tongue. "My wife?" he asked stupidly. "Yes, sir." "I don't have a wife. A woman brought the food to my door. I thought she was your driver." On the other side of the phone, a man yelled as a slap cut the silence. A barrage of Chinese or Japanese insults, loud enough to knock over who it was directed at, stung Tyler's ear. After a moment, the man returned. "I'm so sorry. My stupid son, he not bring it to your door. We refund and bring back food for free." Not sure if he could even stomach anything, Tyler agreed and hung up the phone. Now, engulfed in silence, his thoughts started to rake his mind, and a trickle of fear ran down his spine. A burning building, and then pine sol in his food? 2 things from his book. How could anyone know? Only 3 people knew about these secret pacts, and one of them was dead. A hurried knock cut Tyler's thoughts, and with his heart pounding in his ear, he looked through the peephole. A small Asian man stood there, rubbing his cheek, holding a bag. Opening the door, he took the food and shut it before the driver could say anything. Returning to his computer and forgetting about the food, Tyler sat. Someone knew about the secrets, and it had been the pacts that had brought him and Bonnie together, and it had been the pacts that had killed their mom. Staring at the sin-filled document that he'd been editing, Tyler debated again on purging it to hide his past. This year's work was the only thing that told the truth. If someone was smart enough to peel away the fiction from the truth, all would be exposed. Bonnie was right. The phone rang. While writing, he had kept it on silent and had missed Bonnie's calls, but with the food order debacle, he had turned it up. Flipping over the screen, he saw it was Bonnie. "Bon?" On the other side of the line, people mumbled in hushed tones, and sirens cried in the distance. "No, Tyler, it's me. It was Manny. Where's Bonnie? Is she okay? What happened, Manny? Manny swallowed in a loud, wet sound. It was Rosa. Someone hit her with a car and drove away. Bonnie's with the doctor right now. Manny's voice quivered, and for a moment he went silent as he tried to regain control. She's okay, but Bonnie asked that I get a hold of you. She said she was worried about you. The room began to spin, the memory of an emergency room in a cast for 6 months after a car accident made Tyler want to throw up again. When Mom was alive, Bonnie had been hit by a car in one of their most dangerous pacts. The insurance payout would have paid the rent for 15 months if Mom hadn't squandered it. Tyler tried to speak. Yeah, I'm fine. Forget about me. How's Rosa? Doctor says she's lucky. She'd been in a cast for a while, but Tyler, is everything okay? Why did Bonnie tell me to call you after Rosa was hit? Are you sure everything's okay? We heard your apartment burned down the other day, and you never even told us. Manny, Tyler started, not sure if he would be able to sound tough enough to convince his brother-in-law to back off. In truth, he was a wreck. I'm fine. The fire was an accident. No big deal. Just keep a close eye on your family. Manny blew out a puff of air. After today? Are you kidding? I'll be Papa Hawk. Glad he didn't have to talk to his sister, Tyler hung up the phone and returned to his computer. Somehow the past was coming to haunt him. He couldn't delete the book, but neither could he walk away. No matter how much he denied it and Bonnie ran away from it, the book was his darkest secret. From the bottom of the screen, a message box popped up signaling that an email had been received. Looking at the clock and feeling surprised that she would email him at 2 a.m., Tyler opened it up. Tyler, it's been 2 days and I haven't heard from you. Is everything okay? Are you sick? I sent your 100 pages to the publisher, and they loved it, telling me it was perfectly dark and twisted enough to create conversation. I would love to know where you got the idea for such a story about secret pacts to steal money. It's such a ghetto Bonnie and Clyde tale. Please, let me know ASAP when you will be ready. Tab. Tyler's hands fell flat on the keyboard as all life in them drained. Whenever money was scarce, Mom would smile that fake smile and say that she needed her Bonnie and Clyde. At first it was just a game, and they would laugh about secretly stealing little amounts of money. But with each pact, the secrets grew worse and more dangerous. Whether it was burning down the house for insurance, or throwing Bonnie into the road to get hit by a car, or breaking into the landlord's home to steal back rent, each time they swore to secrecy. Of all the pacts that Tyler feared, the one that Bonnie hadn't been invited to had been the worst of them all. Tyler crossed his apartment and peeked through his window before closing the blind. Mom said that she had an insurance job to end all the secrets. Behind her polished fake teeth, she swore it was going to be the last job forever. But 11-year-old Tyler couldn't hear much more than that through the tears. All he knew was that he didn't want Bonnie to die. Splashing water on his face, Tyler tried to think clearly. If someone was returning the pacts to him and Bonnie, it was that last one of all that he feared. It was the one pact that had ended the stealing and the cheating and gave him and Bonnie a chance for a normal life. It was the pact that killed Mom. The phone rang. Fighting back a screen, Tyler picked up the phone and saw an unlisted number. Unsure why, he answered. Hello? Is this my little Clyde? In 1 second, the room dropped 10 below zero. As a child, he would have nightmares of his dead mother crawling from her grave. Clyde, dear, you don't sound happy to hear from your mother. The voice hadn't aged a day. You remember, Tyler, we made a pact. It was supposed to be our biggest. The payout was $1 million. Leave me alone, Mom. Leave us alone. The other side of the line, Tyler's mom let out a disappointed tisk-tisk. What you did to me was unforgivable. I figured if I reminded you of our pacts from the past, you would remember the one that you failed to fulfill. It was supposed to be Bonnie that died that day, you little brat, not me. No, Tyler yelled. I love her. You betrayed her. My baby boy. I know how much you love her, and I forgive you. Mom's voice was soft and soothing, but in a second the softness wilted to harshness. Keep your pact with me, and kill Bonnie, or I will kill you for what you did to me. Feeling dizzy, Tyler laid down. No, Mom. Leave us alone. We're happy now. We don't need pacts anymore. I'm tired of lies and secrets. The line clicked. For days, Tyler sat in his apartment, unable to leave. He sat there watching the cursor blink like a heart monitor on a dying patient. Mom knew where he was. She also knew where Bonnie lived. No one was safe. Bonnie couldn't believe what was happening. Standing in her doorway, the state trooper stood with his hat in hand, with a look of pity on his face. The summer weather was finally backing off, and in the mountains, they had their first cool night, signified by the leaves with yellowing edges. To her, the officer was little more than an intruder in her haven.
Mrs. Gonzalez, I'm truly sorry to be the one that has to tell you.
Looking at the yellowing leaves and thinking that she would have to call the yard guys in a few weeks, Bonnie nodded. I was his only family. Our mother committed suicide when we were kids. Thinking that Rosa was going to need some lunch soon, she frowned. Did he die quickly? The officer nodded. I think so. We found some small traces of bleach in his throat, and some in the food nearby. But I guess it didn't work, so we had to try a different way. The kind officer nodded to his cruiser in the background. I also have some of his belongings. Looks like he'd only been in the apartment for a week or so. So the manager sent these up for you. Perhaps it'll help you see what he was going through before the suicide. Bonnie thought of the yard guys again, and their grass-stained boots, trying not to dwell on the urge to cry. Mom had been found with bleach in her stomach after she had hung herself. Feeling numb, Bonnie swallowed and faked a smile and thanked the officer. Closing the door, she put the small box in the office and left it there. For the next day, she ignored the loss of her brother. It hurt to be alone. All her life, her little brother had been there through the worst. Inside, Bonnie cursed that woman that had given birth to her and Tyler. She was nothing but an abusive, drugged-up liar that saw her kids as tools to get her next fix. Bonnie felt her stomach roll as she remembered all the lies that had clung to her like slimy leeches. Eventually, life forced her to think of her loss, and while authorizing the cremation of Tyler, she opened the box. Pulling out his computer, Bonnie remembered that Tyler had an agent eagerly looking to publish him. Pulling out the new computer, she punched the password that Tyler had used since high school, and was pleased to see that it had never changed. Opening the email, she became confused. There were no emails from agents asking to publish him. Matter of fact, there were over 50 rejection letters. Digging through deleted emails and other accounts, Bonnie tried the main email page again, and noticed something. On the left, there were a number of unsent drafts. Clicking, she saw a number of drafts titled Tabitha Blake. The name sent an echo through Bonnie's past. Tabitha Blake. That was the alias that Mom had used when she had thrown Bonnie in front of the moving government car. Swallowing the fear, she read the strange emails that Tyler had written, as if he were this woman. The last draft scared her the most. Dear Tyler, I'm sorry to inform you that we are no longer interested in you. Word is spread that you broke a promise to your mother and killed her. At our agency, we cannot allow this to dirty our name. Farewell, TB. Bonnie realized it had all been a lie. There was no agent. Tyler had been trying so hard for so long that he had decided to write an acceptance letter to himself and lie. Going through his documents, she opened one marked as 7th draft. Bonnie read with terrified anticipation of the book that Tyler had spent his last year of his life writing. She read of 2 children working for a depraved mother, lying, cheating, and stealing in hopes for happiness. She read of abuse and little moments that the children shared to imagine what life would be like outside of their nightmare. Last of all, she read of how the mother forced a pact with the brother to murder his sister for an insurance policy that would have ended it all. Bonnie covered her mouth as she cried. Tyler, He had really done it. She had found it strange how Mom had committed suicide, but with the freedom from her evil, Bonnie never had questioned it. In the end, Tyler had made the last pact, doing it in the name of love. He had sworn to kill his mother to save his sister. Forcing herself to read on, Bonnie shook as the story ended, with the mother being poisoned and hung to death. A truly gruesome tale that drove a man mad to live with. He had made a lie, and when the lie had climaxed, the nightmare had been too much for him. Bonnie leaned back in her chair and thought of the cold, dead corpse of her mother and the urn where Tyler would rest. She was alone. Tyler had saved her with a lie, but at the cost of his own life. Closing the laptop, Bonnie wept.
Well, hello there. Sorry, I have to be a little quiet. It is a bookstore after all. Thanks for making it to the end of the video. I really appreciate it. This is a story that I personally wrote. My next video is a submission from another author. Stay tuned, that should be coming out in about 2 weeks. And if you don't mind, please subscribe if you haven't already, and leave a like. And on top of everything you can do, shh! Oh, sorry. If you don't mind, please share this video. The more views I get, the better. Because I hope to help other authors to get noticed. What better way to get noticed than to have people share your videos? So have a good day. Shh!